Doctor, look.
Stand aside, nurse. I'm Dr. Homebrew.
Stand clear.
All right, welcome everybody. It's another episode of Dr. Homebrew, and it's an international extravaganza, or whatever. I don't know. I think this is maybe the second of this, the second beer of this style that we've ever had. Maybe the third Australian sparkling ale. I think is what it's called.
But on this show, we're going to get two of them.
Because we have a Cooper's sparkling ale for a commercial calibration for the second segment. And if you listen to the last show, Justin is back again and with his Aussie sparkling ale, and then he also sent the Coopers along too. So Justin, welcome back, and thank you for the beer. I don't know.
G'day.
For the
That's what. There we go.
That's what they say, man. They
You're not faking that accent, are you?
No, I'm not.
How long have you been over here in the States?
This time I grew up in Australia. I spent most of my adult life overseas.
Nice.
This time here in Pleasant Hill, I live currently.
Nice.
13 years.
Oh, geez.
Cool.
Nice, man. Are you ever going to go back and move back home to Australia, considering how well you guys have been doing with the pandemic and how well you actually care about your citizens?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
He's still home. So,
yeah. Good.
yes.
Okay. All right. Very
Justin's
cool, man.
A pariah now. He's been living here for so long that he'll be considered a COVID, spreader or something. He'll be very leery of allowing him to go back to that continental paradise.
He'll go on all the news networks in Australia. Tell us how it really is. Like you've experienced. You went in. They sent him out as a probe, like we would do for deep space, to then come back and report on the weird shit Americans do. Did you do any homebrewing in Australia, or did you pick that up out here?
I did in my post-college days out of necessity because beer is so expensive in Australia. I did a little bit of it back then when I was about 21.
Yeah.
But I picked it up again recently, only a couple of years ago.
Nice. Super different
Cool.
from what I understand. Yeah. Before we do all that, though, before we get to the Aussie Sparkling Ale, I want to thank 5 Star. You can go to 5starchemicals.com and you can learn about the best ways to clean and sanitize your equipment, which is really one way, which is to use PBW and then to use Star San. And that's how you do it. That's how we do it out here, and you can't tell me any different because the people at 5 Star know what they're talking about. They've developed these chemicals to work wonders on your brewing equipment and even your beer line and all sorts of fun stuff. So check them out, 5starchemicals.com. Use them. If you don't use them, you're going to lose them, and that's really just the key for a lot of different stuff. I don't know what I'm saying anymore, boys.
Well, what you're saying is you can sanitize, but only after you clean.
Yes, that's correct.
That's like you can't do them all in one step, or you can't sanitize and then clean. That's just all sick and wrong.
Yeah.
You have to clean with PBW and then sanitize with Star San. It's a good way to go.
It's the best
Don't
way.
feed the foam. And keep on brewing.
All right, let's pop this Australian sparkling ale. So, Justin, I'm going to assume that you've made this before, but I don't want to assume too much. Is this your first time home brewing a sparkling ale like this?
No, this is probably my 4th attempt at sparkling ale.
Yeah.
I drank a lot of it in my youth.
Okay.
A lot of it.
Yeah.
So I know it well.
Is it something that like you want to try to brew because it's a hard style to make and you want to test your brewing ability, or is it just like a nostalgia thing? Because from what I understand, it's like, it's like a light lagers that, people really just drink because it's cheap, not because it tastes any good.
Yeah, there's a nostalgia element to it, most definitely. But also it's like it's an ale that in a lot of ways has lager characteristics to it, which is it is an interesting thing to try and replicate. Yeah. It's not. It wouldn't be my go-to style, but just because. From my history with it, I'm going to brew it.
Cool. Yeah, that's cool, man. All right, Brian Cooper, why don't you go ahead and get us started here, please?
Okay, I will. I just opened it, and I sniffed the bottle, and I feel like I'm getting a little hint of light struck. I didn't note it last night, but I'm like a little, a slight skunkiness. but not harsh or bad, or really awful. But then, yeah, I don't know. It might have been just fleeting. It's not that. It was when I sniffed the top of the bottle, and now in the glass, I'm not really getting it. So, but it's, yeah, that's one of those things. But it's in a brown bottle, and I didn't store it in the light. This one does have a screw top. That shouldn't affect the, but yeah, you capped on top of a screw top. That's pretty good. You got it to work. It wasn't a screw top.
I did not know that.
It wasn't a screw top cap. I don't think the one I judged last night had that special feature.
Yeah, I don't have that.
Anyway, maybe this one will taste different.
Mine's normal. But what you said that light struck, that's exactly the first thing I noticed too when I popped it and started pouring it in. I got this, it's like a skunky.
Little skunkiness. It's real fleeting. It goes by quick, but it's like, oh, it's a Heineken.
Yeah, I wonder if it's like a yeast character.
I don't know.
I don't know either. Anyway.
I don't recall getting that last night at all. Anyway, just a very, very faint hiss when you open the bottle. The fill level was slightly low, but that's okay. It was just to the edge of where you say, that's a little bit low at a competition. You want to fill it to, well, it's not full anymore, but yeah, a little closer to the cap. Otherwise, some picky judges will think it tastes worse, but when it doesn't. We poured it clear. We did not roll the bottles. Brian and I discussed this last night when we were judging separately in our private residences. And we did not roll the bottle. There was some discussion of whether we should do that. I don't see any sediment on the bottom, really. It doesn't look like it's bottle conditioned, so it probably wouldn't have made a difference. And I did test it last night, and it didn't make much of a difference. So aroma-wise, yeah, aside from that little whiff of hello, skunk, a little bit, it's gone now, but pleasantly malty with bready notes and a hint of some graininess to it. Moderate fruity esters, not poking out too much, just moderately low, I guess you could say. Clean and inviting. It's got a low kind of earthy hop. Not getting anything gnarly in the hops. It's kind of unassuming there, but it's at a nice level to balance with the light malt. No DMS or diacetyl. You know what I got? Yeah, I thought I got like a really faint sulfur. Maybe that was but sometimes that can come from when you're pouring a yeastier sample, as they tend to do when they're pouring them there. Invert your keg and serve it, kind of a thing. But you get a little more sulfur when you have a hazier example of the style is poured with a lot of yeast and suspension. But I thought I got a little sulfur regardless. But it might have also been I might have been thinking of the. Not expecting light struck from a brown bottle, but it's a little bit there. The beer is a nice yellow color with a low white head. Didn't stick around all that long. Faded to a thin collar of ultra-fine bubbles and some wispy cover foam. But yeah, it's quite clear. It did a nice job of clarifying this. It's almost brilliant. There's a little tiny touch of haze, but not bad. 2 out of 3 for appearance. Flavor-wise, a medium-low, lightly bready malt flavor. Maybe just a low bitterness. I would say maybe a little too low for the style. The malt is coming through over the top of that. And again, almost like a little wordiness with the lack of carbonation that's here. Very dry finish with a hint of an earthy hop flavor. It's a clean ale, some slight fruit, but nothing overwhelming ester-wise. The hop flavor kind of pops through late palate. You get past that malt, there's a little bit of hop there. It's actually a flavorful beer, though it is light with a faint kind of a minerally quality. The water actually seems pretty good for the style. It's got a nice little slight minerally edge that plays off just the general lightness of the beer. It would be kind of boring without whatever's in your water. Brew it with distilled water, it would be horrible. No. There's a earthy hop kind of lingers in there with a light malt in the aftertaste. I mean, that's all you got in this beer, but it's characterful for such a light style, and I like the flavor. I landed actually scored the flavor pretty well, 16 out of 20. Mouthfeel wise, quenching, and it goes down smooth and easy, medium low carbonation. I knocked it down a little more on the mouthfeel just because the carbonation wasn't there. But it is quenching. It goes down real nice and easy. I noticed myself like having to re-pour the sample because it was just gone. And I'm like, okay, pour a little more, and it kept going. I was like, this is a real easy drinker, and that's what the beer is meant to be. On a hot day. And of course, it was a cold night when I judged it, so that didn't work for me as well. But it didn't have any warmth or any creamy-like qualities. It wasn't astringent or biting. I would say it's just crisp and quenching. Probably be a little more quenching if it had a little more carbonation. A little, and that crispness would kind of just pop a little more. But overall, it's a pleasant drinking Aussie sparkling. No apparent flaws from the fermentation. Fresh, good ingredient choices. Yeah, the main improvement would just to be increase the CO2 quite a fair amount. This is supposed to be a pretty
sparkling, baby.
A pretty effervescent beer. So yeah, it should be quite a bit higher, high to very high. It doesn't say obscenely high in the guidelines, but it just very high is where they stop. So, but at least high. This will change the way that these flavors express themselves in a lot of ways. So it may change it in ways you don't like. It may enhance the bitterness a little more. I would think it would. And the crispness. You may push up the bitterness ever so slightly, but I think just fixing the carbonation will probably bring it to where that bite needs to be. Otherwise, you go too crazy with it. It'll be too harsh. So since we talked about are we going to rouse it or not? I was like, I put the cap back on it and spilled a bunch of beer, rolling it around on the table, and I decided that was a bad idea. And then I went to the sink and turned it upside down and kind of swirled it around a little bit.
Good gravy.
And I poured it into my glass. Not that it was a slight bit hazier, but nothing. It was the same beer. It didn't change it too much.
Are you supposed to do that?
Might consider doing, and another way that is a good way to get a good level of carbonation in a beer is to bottle condition your beer. It's an old school way to do it. I'm sure this beer is bottle conditioned, but that's something you can consider and see if it works better for you. It's gonna, it's a living beer at that point. It's going to change differently it's going to age differently, but having the yeast there is going to help and keep any oxidation out of the bottle. If you have to put something in the bottle, I suspect this is just a keg of beer that you have and you're drinking for present use as you need for the old time's sake and the homeland there, and that's great. If I moved to Australia, I'd be importing a lot of IPAs and like, oh, America, I miss you. I like the beer a lot. I might have been a little generous, but I landed at a 39 on it. I thought it was pretty pleasant. I forgave the CO2 a little bit just because it's there. It's really, the recipe seems good. I know it's hard to get a lot of carbonation in the bottle, and that's the only little fine tuning I could find pretty much. I'd be interested what hops in it. I don't taste anything gnarly, or I don't really have a lot of experience with using Pride of Ringwood. I didn't think it was that. It doesn't have that. It's supposed to have like kind of an irony, like gnarly hop character. It seems like unassuming, maybe noble-ish hop or something. I don't know, but
I think it's Pride of Ringworm. I thought that's what it was.
Pride of Ringworm.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. I mean, I'm a professional, so I know these things.
Okay.
So people, they take pride in ringworm there.
Yeah, I would, man.
It could be easily pushed up into higher territory, more carbonation, and a lot more carbonation, and maybe a tiny touch more bitterness. So, yeah, great job.
Excellent, Cooper. Shar. Whatever, one of you dumbasses.
50-50 chance of getting that one right. The score is based on the bottle I scored yesterday, as opposed to the one that I'm drinking right now. They are very similar, but with I think just one small difference. Aroma, medium low, yeast and kind of medium malt. I didn't identify as Pilsner or two-row right out of the gate. What's interesting is, to me, there's a very pleasantly bready character, not a doughy character and not bretty like Brettanomyces, but like a good like maybe a good rustic French bread type of character in the aroma, which I think is a combination of the yeast aroma and of the malt itself. I got some earthy hop aroma, no esters, no off aromas, so total score of 8 out of 12. Appearance 3 out of 3. Just like now, it's essentially crystal clear. I think Brian's right. There's maybe a hint of a haze, but that's fine. It's light golden color. The sample I poured yesterday also was maybe a little lower in carbonation than I wanted. I made a note, less of a hiss on opening than expected, but it had a larger head, and there was some bottle variation. So I still give this one 3 out of 3 based on yesterday's bottle. Flavor, initially the flavor is kind of malty and bready at a medium level. Bitterness comes up in mid-palate to balance, and then it sort of tilts over a little bit more toward bitter. There's a very long finish, and the flavor is back to balance between malt and hop bitterness. Get a low earthy hop flavor. It's really well attenuated, which is great. No esters, 13 out of 20. Mouthfeel, 4 out of 5. Carbonation is less than expected for style, which is the reason for knocking a point off. I won't belabor the point there because Brian's already discussed that.
Already belabored it. Thank you.
Yep. You've already labored it. I would be belaboring it if I were to just pile on that. Medium body, no warming, creamy, not astringent. Overall, 7 out of 10 for a total of 35, which is very good. And I'll have to say, this is a very tasty and flavorful beer that I liked a lot. It didn't have any obvious faults. I've never had an Australian sparkling ale before, believe it or not. This is the first time. Your homebrewed example is the first sparkling I've had. So what I have to judge it by is the guidelines. And the thing that kept me from scoring it higher was it seems to lack some of the esters, the carbonation, and the hop flavor to be quite where they need to be for this style. Certainly those things were there, but some of the, aside from the esters, which I really didn't really get a lot of ester character out of this beer. But I've said this, and I made a note to myself, I'll probably get schooled when I open up this Cooper's and it tastes just like your beer. But that's why you taste new things and try new things and learn new things. So, like I said, 35 out of 50. Thank you for sharing. I really appreciate it.
Excellent. All right, Justin, let's go through your recipe real fast, if you wouldn't mind, please, my dude.
Yeah, no worries. So the style guidelines say that use Australian ingredients. Now, I tried to, but grain is not an easy one to get. So the general consensus, reading a lot over the last couple of years online, is a mixture of like a 50-50 mix of Pilsner and Maris Otter, which is exactly what I did, 5 pound each of those two. I've tweaked the rest of the malts over the last several batches I've done. What I landed out on this one was 4 ounces of Crystal 20, very small amount just for color, and 8 ounces of white wheat, which I've never done any white wheat in this style before, and I think it works. I like it. I'm gonna do that again. I might probably bump up the Crystal in the future just for a bit more color, only a slight bit, but just only just a touch. I mashed in very low at this, 145, to try and get it highly attenuated, and I did in the end.
It was nice and dry. Yeah, good job there.
Yeah,
which is
really well
to the
attenuated.
style. Yeah. After an hour, I raised it to 165, held it for 10 minutes, sparged. The only hop addition was Pride of Ringwood. It was Pride of Ringwood.
It is, okay. Yeah.
Interesting.
Nice.
Ounce at 30 minutes. I've played with that over the few times I've brewed it as well. I personally think it needs a little bit more bitterness, so I'd probably go 45 next time. But I understand that Coopers now do some dry hopping. I'm not going to do that. I think that just some bitterness would be the way to go. The OG was 1049, final gravity 10009. 5.2% It's I was happy with this, and I tell you what Brian Cooper was saying about the bottle conditioning. That's where my mindset's been, because on the keg it is fantastic, and it is a pain in the ass to get it into a bottle and keep that carbonation.
Yeah,
And
100%. Yeah,
I think I'm going to do that. Bottle conditioning. In the future, particularly for competitions.
That's only going to help you. Yeah. It's just too hard to get it right in a bottle from a keg. So,
yeah, and when the sparkling is in the name of the beer, I mean, it's unfortunate, because this is a very flavorful, tasty beer. I really like this beer, but the judges are going to expect in competition that it is effervescent, right? Because that's one of the distinguishing hallmarks of the style, even though that's not the be all and end all of what this beer is.
Yeah, sparkling isn't a nickname. It's not like irony. Yeah. So
can I ask a question? Like, if you're judging this in a competition, like, how does that work in terms if you want to swill up at the end of the bottle and see if the yeast is there? Like, is that a normal thing to do, do you think? Or?
Most judges would just take a flashlight, if you have one handy from your phone, of course, now these days. But, a lot of judges in the old days would bring a little pen flashlight and look at the bottom of the bottle to check if it was bottle conditioned. But, yeah, you're not usually going to have time to swirl or row bottles and stuff.
Yeah, and actually, Brian and I had a little discussion about this last night, as we were saying, do we roll it or what do we do with it? And one of the things, I really like the most recent style guidelines, and I think they're very well thought through and very useful. But one of the things I don't care for about them that carries over from the previous version is there are some styles like Australian Sparkling Ale, Hefeweizen, I think maybe one or two others, where they talk about how you can, they mention getting the yeast into suspension and so forth. And the thing is, in competition, the judges or stewards are never going to do anything but pour a couple ounce sample into a glass and judge that. They're not going to engage in anything, rolling of the bottle, moving it, swirling it around, whatever, unless the applicant or the entrant specifically instructs them to do so. And I think that that's something that people don't always realize. And whether or not it's bottle conditioned is something that might affect kind of our thought process about, well, in the overall impression, what do we say about how to make changes or improvements? But there really isn't a spot on the score sheet to mark, oh no, this was bottle conditioned, this was filled from a keg. It does help you think about issues about carbonation or things like that. But that's my long-winded way of saying that no judge in competition is ever going to roll it around or swirl it to get the yeast into suspension and then pour it, unless there's some special instructions somewhere to put that in the entry form. And even then, I'm not always convinced those instructions would make it to the judging table.
Why would you want something like that to happen? I mean, the yeast is going to contribute flavors.
It can.
Yeah. And
that's where, like in a Hefeweizen, for example, it's going to contribute some flavor and it's going to give you some of the appearance. And in like the style guidelines for Australian Sparkling Ale, there is, in some bars, the bottle is rolled along the bar. Publicans usually pour most of the beer in, swirl it, get the yeast in. The yeast seems to be a flavor component in theory. Now, Justin, I'm curious, as a man that's lived a chunk of your adult life there, is that a thing that people do in Australia?
No, it's bullshit. I've never seen that happen in my life.
The only time they'll roll a bottle at you is to throw it at your head.
I don't come from Adelaide, where Cooper's is from, so maybe in Adelaide it does, but I've never seen someone roll a bottle of Cooper's over a bar.
I mean,
Adelaideans do it. Okay.
Maybe I don't know. I seem to. I imagine that something like that is more of a gimmick to excuse cloudy beer. We're like, oh no, that's part of it. Don't worry about it. In fact, let's enhance it with this thing. But I think ultimately nobody wants yeast taste in their beer.
Well, if it's a Hefeweizen or something.
But I don't want to taste the yeast. I mean, I want to taste the yeast characters. Right, I don't want to taste. Yeah, I don't want to be like, oh, this is
fungus.
Okay. Yeah, but maybe it's not a whole.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I'm built different. I don't know.
Justin, where are you from in Australia that you don't roll your Cooper's bottles on the bar?
Yeah, you heathen.
I grew up in Queensland, up on the eastern coast up north.
I didn't want to say it, but I could tell right away when you didn't roll your bottle. I knew it.
Was that like Brisbane or something? Like I've never been, but
I grew up on the Sunshine Coast, just north of Brisbane. Yeah.
Nice.
And Cooper's is in bars, like on tap, on draft in most bars, like a lot of bars in Australia, and it's not cloudy. It's on draft.
Okay. Yeah, it's a good point. And it's hard to keep a beer on draft cloudy, as I think a lot of people that make easy IPAs have found out.
Do we have anything else, Justin? Do you have any questions for the boys, and then vice versa?
No, I appreciate it, guys.
Okay.
It was really the bottle conditioning thing that I wanted an answer to, and I think I got it. I'm going to give it a go. So.
Wonderful.
I obviously need to learn too about the Pride of Ringwood thing too. Is like they mentioned resiny and fruity in the guidelines too, but I was looking for this iron-like flavor, and I just wasn't getting. It doesn't taste like licking an iron bar, but the description on
all right with it.
Northern Brewer is it's resinous, fruity, and pleasant. So.
Yeah.
And they've moved it a little closer to the cohumulone content has been changing over the years. It used to be 40%. It's now down to around 32%, putting it closer to Cascade or something. I don't know. That's what they say here anyway, but I don't believe everything I read on the interwebs. But
well, you should.
I remember very vividly a Zymergy article in like the early 90s where there was specifically discussion about Pride of Ringwood, about do not use this hop. This is terrible hop. Don't ever use it for anything. And it's an acquired Australian taste that don't. And I'm just like, what the hell? And you don't find it in U.S. homebrew shops.
I want to say that's like the new or the complete joy of homebrewing is where I seem to remember that because when I was reading that book, I was working at More Beer and I was like Pride of Ringwood, okay, and it was like don't ever. It was like on the no fly list. And I'm like, that's weird, but okay. It's like we've evolved hops now and whatever. But who would have thought that, we're trying to now replicate all this stuff? Because, of course, back then homebrewing was more like, do your own flavors.
I think I have that book back here. Maybe I'll check for that real quick at the break.
Yeah, well, the break's going to be about 4
Charlie
seconds.
Papazian incite bias against the Pride of Ringwood. Find out on the next episode. Doctor
says the guy whose T-shirt says Charlie is my homeboy with a big picture of Charlie Papazian on it.
Yeah, I thought that was, well, never mind. I'm not going to say anything. Okay, hang on a minute, everybody. This is Dr. Homebrew. We're going to come right back. We're going to drink some Coopers, some actual Coopers. And it's going to be great. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Dr. Homebrew, please report to the ER for code blue. Dr. Homebrew to the ER, please. No, and your tea time has been moved to 2:30.
Now back to Dr. Homebrew.
Hey, thanks for sticking around, everybody. Dr. Homebrew, we are still hanging out with Justin, who has hand-delivered some Coopers to us.
This is
Justin
C.
Justin C. That's right. Oh, what about?
Isn't he the owner of the Brewing Network?
I don't know. I think by default I am now. Where it's just this is what I do now. So I am the owner. Any questions come? No, I'm just kidding.
You've acquired the BN by adverse possession.
That's true. Yeah, prima nocta, I think, is what it really is. But
hostile takeover by JP.
Justin, how did you acquire this Cooper's bottle?
Total Wine, which is for those not in California, is a local, West Coast.
Yeah, it's
liquor store.
It's the heater of for beers. So if you want warm beer, you go to Total Wine or Bevmo. Those are the two places. The warm.
Well, I tried Bevmo and they didn't have any, so I went to Total Wine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Total Wine is a good selection. I'm gonna be honest.
It was a single 6-pack up the back of the international shelf, and it was really hard to see. It was all sort of dark and covered in. This is not the prime example of an Australian sparkling ale, and you're never going to get that in the US regardless.
Yeah.
But this thing's got some age on it. It was at room temperature for obviously close to a year.
Yeah.
And that's about the best you can get in the US. Honestly, if you want to try a true blue Australian sparkling, you need to go to Australia to try it. Yeah. So there's going to be some oxidation in this.
Okay.
So
Peter
Simons,
Simons,
go into it knowing that, but yeah.
Peter Simons, let's go, dude. Send us some beers.
After 13,320.
Yeah.
Which is
So
perfect.
This is at least.
So the
It's at
13th
least
month of 2020 would be January of 2021, wouldn't it?
March,
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, it's at least a year old minimum.
Yeah.
Not to mention how
so
long
it's
it's been in the
March 13th
bottle.
last year.
Yeah. So this
was
is going to be real
modeled
good.
right when the shutdowns were starting here.
So what do we do? Because there is yeast, in there. There's sludgy floating around. Is that what we want in our glass? Like, what should we do here?
My suggestion is to not swirl it up.
Okay.
It would be to drink the vast majority of it, probably two-thirds, three-quarters of it, just pouring normally, and then swirl up and drink the last bit with the yeast. If you can handle it at that stage.
The aroma that's coming off the top, which is it's a twist off, by the way, fellas. Jalapeno honey jam. I'm going to say that right now. So we're going to do like a commercial calibration here and sort of judge this to style, but I do feel like it's sort of rude because it's, a year old.
Well, if you get the same beer here, it's going to be probably about the same as we got it.
It's not a bad pour. Nice and foamy on the top.
Yeah.
All right, Brian Shar, why don't you light us up here, brother?
Okay, similar colors. Interesting. It's similar colors, and of course, different size glasses, different kind of background, and so forth. But it's fairly similar. The Cooper's is maybe a little more golden. There's an odd aroma to it that I wouldn't say if I'd call it jalapeno honey jam, there, JP.
Yeah, well, you're not as verbose and luxurious in your language as I am, so I apologize.
Well, let's not let's hold your horses there. But let's see. It's not nearly as cardboardy as I expected.
Right.
I get a hint of cardboard, but maybe being in the dark in the back, Total Wine helped it maybe not be quite as. It's not like at Bevmo sometimes where they have like cases sitting in the window in the sun, which is one reason I stopped going to Bevmo largely. But the aroma is. It's not bad. It's just very. I'm not sure how to quite characterize what I'm getting. There are some esters.
I would call it honey-like.
Yeah, and honey-like is another expression of oxidation.
Right.
It's not tremendously honey-like. I do get maybe some pear, something like a pear ester.
And a honey-like is something you can get from a light crystal malt too. So if there is some crystal 20 in their recipe, I don't know if they release their recipe for the public. I assume it's a secret. You'd have to be killed to learn the actual recipe.
And there's more. Justin has more head on his. I mean, this is there's not
Mine
much
already
head on this
dropped,
beer at all.
No.
Yeah, you got a little bit more on yours there, JP. Flavor-wise, there's definitely a honey character in the flavor. And if there's anything that's dominant, it's maybe that honey-like characteristic in this. Body's very light. It is effervescent, but maybe not quite as effervescent as I was expecting. I was expecting maybe like almost a Belgian triple or something like that.
Yeah, at least a Coors Light, man, right?
Yeah. But I mean, the bottle is, although the bottle feels, I mean, it's maybe a strange thing to say. The bottle feels strong, but doesn't seem like it's thicker than like a standard American long neck or Sierra Nevada bottle.
I think there's a screw top here. It's there's not even a respectable crown cap going on here.
But I know mine's they're all screw top.
Let me ask you a question, Just. Is it called Australian Sparkling Ale in Australia? Because the label just says Original Pale Ale.
Yeah, so Coopers do too. They do the red and green. The red is called the Australian Sparkling Ale, and this is the Pale Ale. But both are within the style guidelines.
Okay.
In fact, they're both recommended as as prime examples of the style.
They're the only two examples because it's the only commercial brewery that's sparkling ale was out. There used to be a lot of the breweries making this style of beer, but Cooper's is the only one still doing it. So.
That's weird. Well, yeah, there's Castlemaine Perkins does one apparently, and then there's a brewery in Indiana called Scarlet Lane that is example of the style, and the other two are in Western Australia, New South Wales. So
I heard in Indiana they roll it across the bar as well.
he rolled this bottle up his ass.
What's interesting is I don't get a lot of hop character in the flavor of this beer, either in terms of bitterness or in terms of flavor. There is some bitterness here, but it's really not at a very high level.
It's weird. It's a weird
well
beer.
Attenuated.
Yeah. Oh, it's dry. I mean, it's dry, but there is
dry.
a little residual sweetness. But it's funny you were saying the honey Char, because it's weird trying to differentiate between Char and Cooper while we're drinking a Cooper's, and I just can't. I don't know. Because I got some of that honey in Justin's beer, and I was like, I don't know if I want to bring it up. I don't know what the other beer tastes like, so it's hard to compare the two. But those stylistically, sort of match, which I didn't expect. But there is a tart. There's not a tart, but there's a sharp metallic. And then Cooper, you were saying that you were looking for licking an iron bar kind of thing, and I was like, what the fuck is he talking about? But I understand what you're saying now, because there is that a minerality to it.
Yeah, the commercial one has a little bit more of that mineral quality, I think.
A lot, yeah.
It's got a little more carbonic bite in the commercial example.
But you're right, it's not totally wow, this is super highly carbonated,
Right. And then, it's not warming, but it shouldn't be. It's not astringent.
It's not a lot of things. It's a light flavored beer.
I kind of really like it. I mean, despite the age on it, which and the skunkiness, there is a skunky foulness to it. I kind of like it. It's like an overcarbonated light ESB or some shit. I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out in my head.
It's a skunky foul beer, but I really like
the foulness.
I can look past all the flaws of aged beer, and that's all I drink is shipped beer from places. I don't know, man.
No, this is not horrifically flawed.
I've
had a few of these
for being over a year old. I expected worse.
Is a sponsor on here now with you talking about the skunky foulness.
I mean,
but yeah, for a year old, this is an amazing sample. I have to agree with that.
Well, look, don't put words in my mouth. I wouldn't go that far. Don't roll that bottle at me, brother. I will roll it right back. I wouldn't say it's amazing, but it's held up. It's held up surprisingly well, man.
But yeah, it's the big breweries pay good attention to shelf stability and how long their beer is going to last out there in the real world, and oxygen levels. And of course, the big mega breweries that pull all the yeast out of their beer really have to pay attention to oxygen. But these guys can probably be a little more lax because they've got the yeast in the bottom. You store it up right. You let it, percolate until the best after date, and then you got a nice sparkling beer in a bottle that's going to reabsorb any oxygen that might have been there to start with.
I love that shit. Best after.
Yeah.
It's like that Stone Brewing. They used to have that Best Buy series.
Enjoy
Maybe they
Buy
still
or
do.
Yeah.
And then they had the Best
Enjoy
After.
Buy.
Or
Yeah.
Enjoy Buy, yeah.
Enjoy Buy.
They had a sour that was an Enjoy After that they wanted to encourage you to hang on to for a couple of years at least.
That's clever.
Some fun stuff.
Where did we land on this? Or flavor wise? It's just, I mean, everything's basically style, right?
Yeah, it's got a light, grain, little bread kind of malt flavor, and that honey,
Yeah.
And the beers can use, as Justin's doing, using a little light crystal malt to give it the color. This one has a little more color. And I think it's got that kind of, they call the color kind of a marigold. I think if you wanted that marigold, you could probably increase the crystal a little bit, like you said you were thinking about doing anyway, I think. And just, this is a nice color and nice and clear, just like yours is. Side by side, yours is actually a little lighter and less honey-like, a little less carbonated, but they're really close. They're closer than I thought. Because reading the guidelines when it says this is bitter, I'm used to drinking IPAs. Sometimes I underinterpret what they mean by a moderate level of bitterness. Well, this isn't anywhere near moderate. It doesn't, I've just pounded my palate with double IPAs, prior to judging this, and I'm not tasting any hops. So,
I think it's really close as well, man. Great job, because I'm drinking yours again. It's it's obviously hard because by now the carbonation's sort of out. I get more graininess from your beer, Justin, but again, it's also hard to taste over the flaws of the Coopers. But I mean, I guess maybe inherently just sort of prefer more of a malt flavor, than the absence thereof. But going back compared to this, yours is great, and that's not what I mean, but that's what it sounds like. And I'm surprised that you can get this this close, and that quite frankly at us that we could pick out the way the beer should be through the skunky mess.
He's made a fantastic example of it, and we will, once everything opens back up, we will be visiting your garage in Pleasant Hill to taste that fresh
at 498 Marigold Lane.
This isn't a garage; it's actually a garden shed. Believe it or not.
Okay.
Oh wow, nice.
Yeah, Brian.
nice little TV there. Yeah, it's not a roll-up door. It's just like slats of wood behind you.
Yes.
Do we score this? How do you score like the commercial example of the style? But if you had to throw a score
honestly,
at it,
you don't. You drink it.
You
fresh.
drink it.
It's supposed to. It's not. Yeah. It's not to be stored.
No.
You drink it fresh.
I'd score it similarly to how we scored Justin's, because the things that are different, like the carbonation, for example, those would add maybe a few more points, but the fact that it has held up really well for being so old, but some of the bits of oxidation would cause me to knock it down. So I think it kind of ends up about the same ballpark where Justin's beer.
Well, there you go, Justin. Right? Your beer scored the same as a 1-year-old pale.
Drinking this fresh,
Yeah. All right. Well, I like it.
Yeah, neither beer is bland, and that's the key to the style. It's like it's got to be supremely drinkable on a hot summer Australia day, right? And it's summer there now, right? They're drinking right now, and not the heat down there. Hopefully, they don't have all those fires and stuff this year.
No, they're going already. So
geez, is it starting already?
Yeah, there's a big one out there right now, I think.
But anyway, it's definitely the dryness is a key component of the beer that lends to the drinkability. But I think also that the little honey-like note in it gives it something interesting to play with the grainy and bready malts that are there. Some of the honey, like from the commercial one, might be a little oxidation, but I don't know. It might not be because it's not.
I think it's both. I think the oxidation sort of enhances it because we're getting that from Justin's beer also.
Yeah, I think you're right, JP.
So there, I'm gonna make that into a T-shirt. I think you're right, JP.
I think tasting them side by side, Justin's comes through a little grain on the grainier side for sure.
In a good way. In
a good way.
In a malty thing, yeah.
Yeah.
I swirled my bottle. You can tell because it's a little cloudy now.
Oh yeah.
And I get a little bit of iron now that I've swollen. Now
you've gotten swole.
I've gotten swole that I've gotten my bottle agitated and poured some of that out.
Don't agitate your bottle for too long.
At your age, Shar, you can't. I don't know why I'm being ageist to you, and I apologize. But yeah, look at that. This is a hazy IPA, brother. Look at that.
I'm a little tipsy. I don't know why.
Look at that shit. You can sell this to any hipster across the bar anywhere in the East Bay, and they will buy it.
Especially in the Olympia glass, hipster.
Hey,
but yeah, the beer style I understand developed alongside, a long time ago, alongside beers like cream ale and California Common, like steam beer, and things like that. And it's kind of like a lager-like kind of ale. I think lots of them were probably also lagered. Might have been brewed as an ale, but you'd lager it, or I don't know what do you know about the history of the beer, Justin? What do you know?
Well, in terms of how it's fermented, like it starts at 65, and then you sort of raise it over like a degree a day over the fermentation period up to 70, 71. That's a home brewing aspect. In terms of the history of it, like it was really, my understanding was that it was to compete with lagers. Yeah, that's the idea of it. It's an ale to compete with lagers, and that that's obvious, yeah. Like that's you taste it and it's an easy drinking ale.
Yeah. It's amazing to think what a revolution, the light lager was back in that day. Like when you were used to, it's like porters and browns and milds, and along comes this sparkling, bright, clear beer. And it's like, wow, what is this? This is different, And then everybody had to compete with it in their own way, in their own region, the ingredients they had, and make something that kind of captured that spirit. But, this is an ale, but it's a good light drinker, and it's nice and dry. It goes down easy. So you know what? Australian sparkling. This is a great beer for.
I'd reach for one.
Spot. Yeah. It's a great beer for California too. I'm sure.
For sure.
Summer.
Let's take a quick break. We're going to come back. We're going to wrap things up here on Dr. Homebrew. We'll be right back.
Hello, fellow BNers. This is Sully from the 21st Amendment Brewery located in San Francisco, just 2 blocks from Giants Park. Before Nico and I opened the 21A and before I was a professional brewer, I homebrewed on my small 4-burner apartment stove in a back house in Santa Monica, California, making my extract brews before graduating to the daunting idea of all-grain brewing. Homebrew books and information was hard to come by back then. The internet hadn't been invented yet, along with other things we take for granted today, like electricity and potable water. One thing I wish I had back then when I was learning was a radio show that could teach me the ins and outs of brewing and answer questions that I had about homebrewing, a resource for making great craft beer. The 21st Amendment Brewery is excited to be a proud sponsor of Dr. Homebrew, a great show that teaches you what you need to know about making incredible beer. Good stuff. Listen up, you might learn something. I certainly did. And thanks for your support. Tasty Crack Games.
The leader in affordable, high-quality kegerators is here. Introducing Komos, the kegerator designed with serious beer drinkers in mind. It features an all-stainless steel draft tower, a major upgrade over traditional chrome-plated brass towers, and Komos keeps your new tower cold with their air-cooled tower fan, wrapping your beer lines in frigid coolness. Your beer is poured from innovative forward-sealing faucets that don't leak, so they stay cleaner for longer. Dual gas inlets on the rear of the fridge allow you to run both CO2 and nitrogen gas. Serve your beer with CO2, serve your kegged wine, or even cocktails with nitrogen. The digital temperature display has the largest range available, allowing you to use the Komos Kegerator for fermentation if you need to. And now Komos Kegerators ship with duo-tight draft fittings for that click-to-connect assembly we've all dreamed of. Buy direct from KomosDraft.com and receive free shipping on your order. That's KOMOS Draft.com.
Ma'am, I'll need to take your top off for this examination.
Oh, doctor.
Hey, thanks for hanging around, everybody. It's Dr. Homebrew. We are wrapping it up. Justin, thanks very much, man, for not only providing your homebrew, but an aged Cooper to compare them two side by side to do our little commercial calibration, John, that we'd like to do over here. So I appreciate that, man. Thank you very much.
No worries at all.
The only beer style born down under. So, kind of cool to have it and taste a commercial next to a really good homebrewed version of it, and nicely done.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you want to do something nicely done or something, I don't know, email Brian at thebrewingnetwork.com. We'll get you on the show. You do not have to provide commercial beer, but if you want to, that is totally fine and acceptable. Under 1 year age, please.
Yeah. You don't have to bring it to my house like Justin did, but you can.
But you can if you want, man. That's totally fine. We are taking hard seltzers and wine and mead and all sorts, whatever you want. It's not just beer. Flawed beer, which is mainly the reason why we started the show, to help people, with flaws. So don't be afraid if you're embarrassed about your beer. If you want help at all in making your beer better in any aspect, or you want better feedback than you can get at a competition because you can actually ask the judges now, email Brian at thebrewingnetwork.com and we will get you on the show.
We want your beer, and the flawed ones are the fun ones to taste. If you have your homebrew friends are like, yeah, Bobby, you got kind of a house character going on there. I don't know what it is, but all of your beers have this certain taste in them. I don't know what it is. Send it into the doctor's homebrew.
There you go.
Are we doing prison wine? Are we doing
Sure, I'll do Pruno, dude. Hell yeah.
Do we have limits?
No, man.
Yeah.
If you make it, we'll drink it. That's it. All right, everybody. Thanks a lot for tuning in. I really appreciate it. If you, I don't know. I would really appreciate if you. Hold on, I'm going to burp, and I can't think and burp at the same time.
What I think JP wanted to say is double mask up and stay safe, everybody.
Double mask, brother. That's right. Stay away from everybody.
I was double masking before it was cool, I'll tell you.
Well, ever since you told me about that, I have a mask with a filter. I put a paper towel in between there, and yeah. So
I go into the office, so I'm issued a surgical mask which covers down around here, and then I feel the air coming in through there. So I'm like, I'm going to put on my neck gaiter that I wear when I'm out running or walking, and I'm going to pull that up over the bottom part, and I get a little extra filtration. I know neck gaiters aren't the best, but mine has a pocket in it for the filters, a little 2.5, blah blah blah, and so it makes me feel better, and so far. So good. I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing until I can
doing what you're doing, baby.
The shot in the arm.
Yeah. When I went to get my first one, I had they're made by Honeywell, and they don't like press over your mouth like this. There's like a pocket for your face, for your fat face, and they have a filter inside that's supposed to be equivalent to the N95s. But I take that out and I put a paper towel in between the front of the mask and that, because of what you said, and then I pull my neck gaiter up over that, and anyway, I did that to go in to get my shot, and I was like, I'm having a hard time breathing.
So you're like quad masking it at that point.
Yeah, at that point, I mean, first of all, it's my Liverpool gaiter, so I have to I feel cool about that. But
represent.
Yeah, I know they're not the greatest things. Liverpool this year, and neck gaiters, but it's something.
So the more layers you have, the better. You can fold over pieces of Kleenex and get like 2 pieces of Kleenex and fold it over. You got 4 layers in between. If you're, I don't know.
You got it.
I'm not. This is not medical advice, but
no, it is. Yeah, feel free to sue Brian Cooper if you get COVID and you do the things he said to do.
We're starting a new podcast called "Don't Get COVID," and
called "Don't Sue Us" either.
I'm available for representing anyone that's trying to sue Cooper.
Yeah.
Or Coopers.
No hard, nothing personal.
For that matter,
Brian.
yeah.
I gotta eat.
Understand. I
hear
you.
All my dogs eat. All right, we got to go. Thanks, everybody. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other, and we'll see you later.